Hey, in today's video, let's talk about what is a business model and why you should define one. So first of all, what is a business model? The idea of a business model is that you have an idea of a solution, of a product that you want to build, that you want to bring into the market, and you want to define how this business is going to work. This is not just about how you're going to sell it. Some people tend to define business models as the way that you are selling the product, but for me, it's the whole process of actually turning a product, a potential solution into a business. And this implies many other aspects than just the sales and the product. And why is it important to define a business model? The reason is that if you don't have a business model defined, most likely you are going to skip things, you are going to miss aspects of this business that you're trying to create, and potentially you are not going to align. And this is very important. You don't want that teams are working separately on a marketing strategy, on a sales strategy, on a product strategy, and that they are not aligned around the business that you're building. This is why having a business model is going to help you a lot. So now I'm going to go through the different key areas that you had to take into account when defining a business model, and I will give you some thoughts on tips on my ideas about business models. Also, this is going to be a big video, so let's get going. So the first aspect of building a business model is that you have to start always with a problem. I always love what Simon Sinek says, start with why. Why are you doing this? What is the reason that you are trying to build a business? There has to be a problem that you want to solve, that you are trying at least to solve. And you want to be specific about this problem. You have to define it properly so people understand what you're trying to solve and don't be too generic. It's very easy to be too generic, and sometimes it's very difficult to solve a problem that is too generic because it has to have many things into account. So as part of the problem, you want to define what is this problem that people are facing, and you want to also look and talk about who are the people that are having this problem. This is very important because this is a way of narrowing down the problem. This is going to help everybody from messaging, from planning the product, from how or who I'm going to sell to this product, because this is something that obviously you had to plan for. It's very important that you are able to identify that problem as clearly as possible. And I don't mean that you don't have to solve common problems. I mean that you are defining your problem narrowly so people can understand and focus on what they had to solve. And when I talk about defining your problem narrowly, I don't mean that you are not going to solve similar problems in the future. So for example, you could think about there are different companies that do maintenance of cars. Some companies do maintenance of every aspect of the car, and some of them, they just fix some problems with the painting and the windows and whatnot. So it depends a lot on what you want to do. You want to make sure that you define the problem that you want to solve. First, starting small, especially if you're starting a business, and then you can grow from there. So I don't mean that in the future you cannot expand the problem that you're solving. I just say that usually it's better to start small and grow from there. Unless maybe if you have infinite budget and infinite resources, you can go shoot for the moon. That's not the case for most of the people. And even for companies with the resources, that not always ends up very well. You can see EV adoption nowadays, or EV transformation, or companies moving from ICE vehicles to EV vehicles. Many people thinking that they have a ton of resources and that should not be a problem for them. And they're quite struggling with that, building that solution for that problem. So talking about solution, let's go for the next one. Second one is going to be the solution that you're going to build. This is a very important part of the business model, and a part that is, for me as a product person, and probably for many in the audience, who you are building also products, this is probably going to be one of the most exciting one. That how am I going to solve a problem for a specific customer set? This is going to be really, really, really key and very important that we understand how is the most optimal way of solving the problem. This doesn't mean that you're going to go for the perfect solution from the beginning. Sometimes done is better than perfect. So you should also think about what could be the steps of getting to that solution. You might want to start with that vision, the vision of my solution, the vision of my business. That is very important. And from there, step down. You always want to start with a big picture and then narrow down until you get to something that you can start building in the beginning. Something like an MVP, a minimum viable product, something that is going to help you test the solution that you are building with a small customer set or with a small testing group, whatnot. Depends on how do you approach the first early stages. You might want to do many MVPs in reality. That's something very important, something that you have to pay attention to. MVPs is a great way of validating different assumptions. And it can be used, by the way, to validate also the problem. Something that I forgot to mention earlier. It's very important that you validate the problem that those potential customers have. Make sure that you understand the industry or the customer segment, and make sure that you understand and validate that this problem is something that they have. You can do this with MVPs. You can also use MVPs to build small solutions that are going to help you validate that the solution that you are building to solve that problem is going to be a reliable or a validated one with your users. Here again, I'm talking mostly about software products, which is where I have experience. It might not be so easy, for example, to do an MVP if with the example of the car maintenance companies, because, well, you might do an MVP to validate the problem, might not be so easy to do an MVP to validate the solution. Although you could start small and start just doing it with a few customers before you even set up a shop. You can also take that approach with physical products, but my approach usually is for software products, just to let you know. Solution is also something that if you are a product person, you would like to work with somebody else, like a product designer, like software engineers, tech leads, whatnot, that are going to help you build that solution and maybe iterate fast to build some mockups that can be then validated with the potential users. This is going to be very important. You don't have to do a business model in isolation. That's usually not a great recipe because you're not aligning with anybody. It's better that you align from the beginning with as many people as you can. And step by step, as always, obviously, you don't have to have a room full with 20, 30 people to align with everybody that is going to be involved in a business model. But you have to make sure that you align and that you get the feedback from others for what is realistic, what is appealing, what is feasible, what not, all the different aspects that you are going to have to take into account when you're planning a new business and a product. The next one that I like to talk separately from the problem and the solution is the value proposition. Why I like to talk about this separately is that because the value proposition is the direct impact or benefit that you are bringing to your customers. So think about that problem that they have. Your solution is a tool for them to solve that problem. But once you solve that problem, what is the benefit that they get? They might be having a happier life. They might be entertained if they're watching a movie. They might not have a problem with a car. They might be more productive if you are thinking about B2B companies or products. This benefit is very important and something that you can also validate. And there is the MVP, I don't remember how is it called exactly. I think something like the NotePress MVP. The NotePress MVP, the idea with this one is that you build like a NotePress, like a review from some kind of press or magazine, or maybe somebody in a blog that is reviewing your product and is telling about what are the first impressions, what do they think that it can do, what is this potential, maybe what are the pros and cons, what is the pricing, and so on. Just like a review of your product. And this is the ideal world that you would like to see, that people actually want to get that value. You can build that up as a NotePress or a press note. Sorry, I don't know how to say it. And then you can release it to a certain potential customers, get their feedback. Is this what they want to hear? Is this what they are after or not? That will help you validate that value proposition, that benefit that the customer is going to get. Because you might have assumptions of what performance or what benefits the company is having by using your product, or a person is having by using your product. But it might be that your impression is one, but the reality of what they're expecting by solving that problem is something else. Again, validate your assumptions every time that you can. And value proposition, very important, because many times this is going to be like a tagline for your business. This is very commonly what is used then for marketing, where people are talking about just do it, or connecting people. A little bit all reference that one. But these are basically, in a way, the value proposition of those products that they are helping you to just go and do things or actually connect with others. Those are basically the value proposition of those products. Nike and Nokia, if somebody missed them. Next, in your business model, you want to talk about your product. And here you usually are going to talk about the product from, for example, more like a feature base. You want to describe what are the things that the product is going to do and how it's going to do it here. So here you can have like different features. You can have mock-ups and designs. This is very important, that it's going to give an understanding for people of what this product is going to do, what it's going to be able to achieve. This is very important because, of course, this is also how you potentially start to define what are the key areas where your product is actually going to differentiate from the customer or from the competitor, So, for example, here, think about your unique value proposition or the key value propositions that your product has, where it's either completely different from other competitors or where it's better than other competitors are at this point. You don't have to always have a completely different approach to other competitors in the way that you have to have something that's completely new, but you might be so much better in a certain area that competition is just disappears. Imagine when Gmail appeared back in the early 2000s and everybody was using more. Many people were using Hotmail or Yahoo or whatnot for emails, for their own personal emails. And then when Gmail came, it was so much better to use, but it was not having like a value that it was so much different from the others. It was just, you could say usability was a unique value proposition there, but it was just so much better in the usability and the lack of advertisement, by the way, that it made it so different from those other competitors that many people just switched, and it was just so much easier to use your email in that moment. Think about that. Think about how you're going to differentiate from those potential competitors. That is going to give you the edge. That is going to be also your strategy or one of your strategic areas where you're going to make a difference with those competitors. This is going to be key for you. So I would like to organize the business model in this order because I think that gives a good high level point of view for people of what you're trying to do. The next one I like to go into is the market research, because you have to validate all the things that we have been talking about. We have to validate the problem exists, the solution exists. We have to validate that the potential approach is good, that the potential benefit is good. You have to do a ton of research to make sure that your business is built correctly. And I don't mean that you have to have a paralysis analysis case. That's not what I'm saying, but you have to actually do a research. You have to find out what is the problem that people have. Who are the people that are having this problem? Are they belonging to a certain demographic? Are they belonging to a certain geographical area? Do they belong to a certain industry? What are the characteristics that define your different personas? You're going to have many different personas, and this has to be also part of your exercise. Define who are those different personas that you are going to target. Obviously, you are going to have the users, but if you're thinking about a B2B product, a business-to-business product, you are going to also have to define all the different people. So there's going to be different types of decision makers. The buyer persona is not going to be the same one as the user persona. In a company that is a big company, usually, there's going to be somebody that might not be the user of your product. For example, if you're selling something to an engineering team, I don't know what, like a ticketing system, they might want to use something like Jira or even Notion, who knows. They are not going to usually make that decision. There's going to be some kind of CTO, some kind of a tech lead that is going to make that decision for the team. And that person that is the buyer persona might not be a main user for that product. You also have to appeal to them. You have to make sure that you understand who are the different personas and what is going to be your way of messaging to these different type of personas. This is going to be very important because it's going to help you make sure that the message goes through, that they understand what they are buying, and that they understand the benefit for each one of those different levels of personas. IT, for example, is somebody that you are going to have to message to. And in some companies, the decision is going to be made not just by a CTO or by a tech lead. It depends a lot on the budget as well. If your product is on the expensive side, let's say, or is going to be used by many people in the company, it might be that your product costs like tens of thousands of dollars or euros per month. That usually means that it's not going to be your tech lead, your CPO, your CTO that is going to make the decision, especially if you are thinking about a small company. The CFO or even the CEO are going to be involved in that decision. So you have to understand these dynamics. You have to understand if you're selling to small companies, to big companies. Are you selling like an enterprise product? Are you selling B2B? Are you selling B2C? So business to business, business to consumer. Who are you targeting? This is part of your research. You had to do it right, and you had to make sure that you understand who are you targeting. This is going to be very important, and understand where that problem is present. Not just the people, but the areas where that problem is going to be solvable. And as part of this exercise of a business model, you also have to look into, for example, look into different countries, different personas. I had to find this or make this matrix that shows me which ones are the areas that have the highest potential and which ones are the areas that can realistically target. And from there, do a rollout plan, a roadmap of how I'm going to be, for example, in the future, onboarding different types of personas that might have the similar problem, but maybe it's not that valuable as a business, or it might be very difficult to solve for me at this point. I might solve that later on. That is going to help you establish if, for example, I'm selling something that I have done from my experience is that I've been working for several companies that build software for different construction businesses. It's not the same making a solution for architects or for engineers, construction engineers, I'm talking for, construction companies. All of them might have some similarities, but they all have their own needs. And it might be that your product tackles all of them or could be used by all of them, but you have to make sure that you narrow down and you understand which ones you can actually serve the best and at which stages of your product and your development. This is going to be important. This is going to help you to actually be more successful when defining your business. And one last thing, as part of the market research, I think you should always do like a TAM, SAM, SOM exercise. So total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. Always have to think those ones. The idea with these ones is that based on your problem, your vision, the solution that you're building, you can define who are the target personas for like the vision of your product once it's fulfilled. What would be that target, what would be that total addressable market? This doesn't mean that that total addressable market is something that you are ever gonna take. Your total addressable market is just the total size of that market. The serviceable addressable market is going to be a more realistic point of view of how much or of that market I could get based on the solutions I'm building. The serviceable obtainable market is the one that is more realistic because this one defines then who are the people that are really building the solution for, especially at this point of time. In the future, my serviceable obtainable market can increase and can grow as I'm adding new features and new value to my product and addressing maybe more user personas. Very important that you do this exercise. I have a video talking about these ones. If you want to go check it out, I will link it up there. The next one that I want to talk about is your technology. You want to talk a little bit about the technology that you are going to use when building a business model. And this is very important because it might have consequences, the different technologies that you're using. For example, if you're using cloud-based solutions, most likely this is tied then to the way that they are going to be priced, because they are typically priced in certain ways, like subscription models and so on, that we are so familiar with nowadays, and that 10 years ago, they were not that familiar at all. It is very important that you give that understanding to the people that are building this, because this is not just for the more business-minded people, it's for everybody, this business model, and should cover all the areas. This is why it's very important that you talk about the actual, this is why it's very important that you also talk about the technologies that you are going to be using. So that shows also and demonstrates the people that are reading the business model that you understand also the work that needs to be done. And now let's talk more about the go-to-market. And here, usually what you're going to talk is about 4 P's: product, promotion, price, and place. I covered already the product, but you are going to have to define what are the pricing that you are going to be using for your product. Where are the places that you are going to sell this product? And as part of this, you also want to talk about how you're going to service the product. This is very important. What is it going to be like the support, the customer success for the product that you're building? This is key. And many companies, they just think that building a support team is enough and that is going to give a great experience. Not always. It's good that you think about it, good that you plan it, good that you understand the experience that you want to give to your customers, and think about the best experiences that you have had with other businesses. That will give you an idea of how to differentiate yourself from others. The same goes for promotion and marketing in general. How you are going to promote this product, where are you going to promote it, how are you going to go to the places where your customers are. This is very important. You just don't want to blast advertisement in TV. You want to make sure that you understand, based on the research that you have done for the user personas that you have. From there, you can actually build the promotion and the discovery phase for your customers or your potential customers of where to discover your product. This is going to be key to understand where your potential customers are. That's where you want to reach them. And sometimes it's also very important nowadays that you think about out of the box. And it's not even thinking out of the box so much anymore, because many companies are doing it. How you can talk with people that are influencing others. So how you could talk with thought leaders, with creators or influencers, if you want to call them like that. They are going to help people to make the purchase decision. That's why all these companies are producing tech or phones or whatnot. They're giving it to all these tech reviewers that are on YouTube and in other channels, because people trust the opinions of those thought leaders, of those creators or influencers. You also want to think about this. Is this something that it makes sense for you and the products and the business that you're building? And I don't mean that you only think about pay advertisement. You can also give like free access so they can go and review it. Now let's go and talk about the team that you have. When you think about the team, you not only think about the current team, you also think about the team that you are going to need in the future to be able to build this business, to build this product. So for example, I have talked about building a product. Well, do you have the product management people, the product designers, you have the engineering teams, the back end, the front end, DevOps, QA people, data engineering or data analysts, data scientists, AI engineers, whatever you want to call them, whatever you need to build this product, you have to make sure that you have defined and understood what are the areas where you potentially are lacking people. And this is not just about building the product, it's also about the go-to-market. Do I have all the people that can do product marketing, for example, branding, marketing in general, that they can do content actually for different media? Do I have people that could create videos about the product, people that can edit them? Do I have then the salespeople to actually support the sales processes that I have? Do I have product growth people that can actually help growing the product for if I am using something like a subscription model? Do I have the customer success, the people that are going to help and engage with those potential customers, that are going to even host events that are going to help them get the knowledge to learn how to use the product. For example, it can be pre-sales engineers, or it can be solution architects that are going to help them integrate your product into their services. Very important that you define all the different aspects, take into account all the different aspects, and understand what are the team needs that you are going to have. At the same time, don't think about only the team, but also think about the processes. It might be that you need to change the processes in order to adapt to the reality of this new business. And you might not have those processes, like being agile or using Kanban or design thinking. Whatever it is, think about it and try to plan for it. Learn and try to train also the people that will be involved in the project. And the last aspect that I want to talk about are the finances. Finances is something that, especially if you think about product, people don't tend to think very much about this because it's somebody else usually who is thinking about this. But you have to think about what are going to be the costs of building this product. This might be when you think about the teams, you can think about, well, I would need these people, how much that potentially is going to cost, what are their salaries, and so on. What are the tools that we need? For example, do we need to buy, I don't know, the latest GPUs from NVIDIA that cost like, I don't know how many tens of thousands of euros in order to do AI? It might be that it's a little bit crazy in the beginning, but it might be something that you need in the future. It depends on the product that you're building, obviously. This is something that you had to budget. That's part of the finances of your project. It's going to be very important because you have to understand how much it's going to cost you, and if you can even afford to build that product. At least to understand, even if you can build those first versions of the product, that they start to get traction, that you start to get money in, that you start to make that profit as soon as possible. It's true that some companies, they just rely on investments. Anyways, if you are after investments, you have to have your financials also in place, or whatever is going to be your budget, because that's going to help you understand what are your needs. If you don't have a budget, well, it's just going to be a little bit of a waste of time, and it's probably in many companies not going to go through unless you understand what are going to be the financials for that project that you're building. As part of the financials, you can also do an ROI, or part of the time sum exercise. You can also look about, based on the pricing, how much could be the revenue that you are potentially expecting or planning to have based on that. And I know that these are just speculations, but but most of the companies, most of the businesses are going to want some kind of expectation to understand what is the potential size of this business. If depends on the company, it might be that they think that any business that is not going to return at least eventually 1 million euros or dollars per year is completely useless. That's something that you have to take into account. And yeah, you don't have to just make it backwards. Don't start from the 1 million, go down, go bottom and then up. That is going to be a much more realistic estimate of what the business potential is. So in summary, a business model doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be perfect to the point defined from the get-go. You have to define it over time. This is a living document that is growing, and you can use something like a wiki to define it. Something like Notion is going to help a lot to actually be able to define those different stages of the business model. So you want to make sure that you are adapting it, that you are updating it, that you have it live. So any newcomer that comes to the company can take a look and understand where we are, or anybody that's participating in the project. My next thought about how to create a business model is that if you are a product person, especially, it might be that you are not the driver for creation of the business model. It might be that you are, it might not be. This will depend a lot on the company that you are in, and different companies are going to do this very differently. If you're in a small company, it possibly might be that you are the one that is driving it. If you're in a bigger company, they might have a strategy team and sometimes like business leaders, or usually VP of certain business or something like that is driving a vertical, and that might be the one that is actually driving the creation of this kind of business model. It will depend a lot on the different companies and who is going to be the driver. But in any case, when you're building or creating or developing a business model, there's going to be many people that are involved, and these are going to be people from engineering, product. There's going to be people from marketing, sales, And depends on the companies, there's going to be sometimes also involvement from like the CEO or the business leaders. It depends a lot on the size of company, how the company is structured, how much delegation is also something that is present or not in the company culture. This is going to be very different. So don't be very surprised by maybe different ways of driving a new business or the creation of business models. I probably seen it in many different ways being done. So I wouldn't be surprised about who drives it. I would say that in general, I think that the ones that tend to drive it are the most proactive ones. That's just a reality of how businesses tend to work. There's usually people that are more proactive than others. If you're a proactive person, doesn't matter so much if you are in product or if you are in marketing or whatnot, you possibly are going to be the one that is driving this or going to be one of the very active members. That's possibly where you want to be. It depends a lot, of course, again, your personality. Next, I will say that business models have a bad rep from many people because they are heavy, they are long, and people say that there's this massive document that tells you exactly how a business has to work, and it's useless. And the reality is that we don't know how the business is going to work until we get there. And it is true. It is true that you cannot create a perfect business model without really walking the walk. But what you can do is that you can go adapting that business model as you go. And I think that from that point of view, for me, the business model is a living document that is adapting and changing when the scope of the project of the business is changing over time. And it will start small and it will grow all the time. We'll have more details. You don't have to build a perfect business model because that's not realistic. You will learn more as you go, as you do more research, as you even have the first versions of your product launch and of your business actually starting. You will learn because as there are many studies out there, most of the businesses fail. This doesn't mean that when you fail, you just give up. You had to fail, learn, adapt, and hopefully succeed in the future. That's what you had to do. This is why a business model, in my opinion, is still important and why you should have it and why you should be updating it all the time. It's basically how you are updating a roadmap for a product. You don't try to build a perfect roadmap, you just go and adapt it all the time. Another one that comes to my mind is that in the startup world, they talk a lot about the pitch deck. The idea of a pitch deck is basically the same as a business model is, just that you condense it into a presentation of somewhere around 10 to 15 slides. What you want to do is that you want to show that you have thought about what this business is going to be and how it will work and what are going to be the strategic areas where you're going to focus in the beginning. This is very important because what you're saying here with this speech is that you're showing the most important aspects of your business model. I think this is great for presentation purposes. I think that from my point of view, a business model goes more from a documentation point of view. And I think that both are important, and I would not say that you need one and not the other, and that you could live without any of them. I think that you should pay attention to potentially having both because they have different goals. And I think that in any case, the same way as you are documenting your code, the same way as you are documenting your product, for internal purposes or for your users, you should also document your business model. That's why I think that having a business model is very important. That's going to help your team align, understand what you're trying to achieve, have common goals and common strategies to try to make a successful business as soon as you can. So this has been a probably quite long video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you find it useful, I will appreciate it a lot if you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I don't do a ton of videos talking about how to create software products and businesses around them. I will see you in the next video, and remember, stay safe.